This Gold Coast Seaway Aquarium, which is looking very fishless, is going to become pretty fishy very, very quickly. Now, for those of you that want to keep a Dasumias, or in this case a yellowfin surgeonfish, this is how big they get. You got to rethink it. They get seriously big. This one's my Dasumias surgeonfish. You can see he's still a big fish, but he's not as big as that one. But he's going to get as big as that one. Remember this guy? This guy was that nice little yellow boxfish I collected myself down the Numbucka River, becoming a really fantastic pet. I absolutely love my fan belly leather jackets. They are fantastic, fantastic fish. You can keep them in pairs. They eat anything. They're really hardy. And although they're not colourful, they have amazing patterns, amazing fins, a beautiful fan belly on them. Let's grab this one and then the other one comes in next. I love these guys. They get pretty big too, about maybe a foot long. And there's the bigger of the two. They look superficially similar to a Aptasia eating filefish. Here's my other filefish, or leather jacket. This is a yellow belly leather jacket. And you know how much I absolutely love butterfly fishes. This is a raccoon butterfly fish. This guy here is my one-spot snapper, or Moses perch. It's a very close relative of a mangrove jack. One thing I don't like about doing this, it always, besides stressing the fish, it always marks them, it always scratches them up. I try and do it as fast as possible. I try and give you guys a look. Obviously that's something a bit different to what I would normally do. And it takes a day or two for their scratch marks or the occasional tear in the fin to actually heal. These guys are a couple of my favourite fishes, which are the diamond fish, or monos. Absolutely fantastic schooling fish. Freshwater when they're young, saltwater when they're adults. These guys are not even full grown yet. They school beautifully. My last mono, I've got some plans, some big plans for some schooling fish in this tank, and I mean schooling fish. A very close relative of the one-spot snapper is another snapper. This is actually the 5-line snapper. I'm in two minds about putting the Australian stripies in. I have 3 to go in. I think I owe it to them to go into this tank because they were some Aptasia eating fish as littlies. Unfortunately, and I do see a lot of overseas people starting to spend money on buying these fish, their brilliant yellow colorations fade, they become more cream and brown, and they also eat coral. Personally, I'd save your money. But in saying that, they don't bother anybody, they eat everything, and I'm hoping with some good, let's just call it freshwater style lighting, we might get some of those yellow colours back. There's this other buddy, you can see how big they get. They like their food and they grow really fast. Come on buddy, there we go. I love the way the little yellow boxfish is still just sitting here. Nothing bothers him. He's cool. If you've got a question that you'd like to have a deep dive into, well, not a deep dive, a closer look at, and you want me to actually answer it personally in a video, then reach out, put it down in the comments down below, and I'll be sure to address it just for you in the video. So Copperhead Customs, who's a reptile keeper and a fish keeper, so he's a man of my own heart, asked the question, have I thought about doing a mangrove tank at some stage, maybe a mangrove paludarium? Myself a drink, was going to be a long story. Back in the day, my hobby as a child was influenced really, really heavily by a book put out by Gunther Schneider, and it was called Cold-Blooded Australians. And it was basically all about the fish, the amphibians, and the reptiles of Australia. And that book was burned in my memory, my psyche. Wherever I went in the creeks looking up empire gudgeons or yabbies or turtles or amphibians, it all crossed paths. It all blended into one. As a young guy, I was actually heavily into reptiles. And in particular, when I say reptiles, I mean, for Australians, goannas. For the Europeans out there, the varanids. And for the Americans out there, the monitors. Yeah, Gary, this one's for you. This is me about to make some sweet love with a broad banded of Bell's Phase Varanus varius lace monitor. Pretty much my life back then was absolutely governed by goannas. Now bear with me, I know this is a fish keeping audience, but bear with me. So all in my travels, as I went to places like, this is Lombok, Gili Air, a little bungalow, and I found this Asian water monitor on the shower. So of course I had to catch him. And then I managed to drag my then fiance to a place called Komodo, and that's when I knew she was a keeper. And because she was a keeper, it was imperative that I fill my backyard with very large enclosures for very large goannas. Now that was my aim. Again, long story, I know. But that was my aim. My aim was to keep every large species of Australian goanna. And that was a quest that I succeeded in, except for 2 species. The first was just not available in the hobby back then, and that was the Parenti. The second was the mangrove monitor. And thus, I get on to my actual topic of this question, Copperhead Customs. So the mangrove monitor, although it was ever so slightly in the hobby back then, it was just unattainable. But there was a similar species that I was just absolutely dying to get my hands on, and that is Varanus semiremex, the rusty monitor, which is a coastal mangrove species, a lot smaller, from central Queensland. And I always thought how fantastic it would be to do a display of a mangrove living monitor with crabs and the fish species that would go with it. So absolutely yes, mangrove and a mangrove display has been burning my psyche for quite some time. Now Copperhead, fast forward a few years, and the old Coral magazine. This is fiddler crabs, Coral, May, June 2013. And in it is an absolutely great article on fiddler crabs. And not only that, in fiddler crabs, it actually brings up a section of the article which describes some high and low standpipe arrangement with fine tuning of the actual return pumps to actually get a high tide and a low tide. Now, of course, that kind of thing is obviously very doable now with modern dosing pumps and water change devices, but of course in 2013, that just didn't exist. And what I love about the whole mangrove exhibit is that it's dynamic. The high tide, the low tide, the ability of life to come out of the substrate, the mud at a low tide situation, the idea of fiddler crabs or soldier crabs, and of course having something like a rusty monitor or a mangrove monitor that might come down and actually prowl around that low tide mud flats. I love that idea. I guess the big question is, hang on a minute. So Diva Chapman, this answers your question, why my drinks don't freeze and ruin my fish food. It's because with my long necks, they're 2 drinks. They never last more than 1 night. If I love mangrove exhibits so much, why haven't I actually done one? And trust me, I've thought about it. But you've probably noticed by now, I like to make my tanks a true display. And that is where the issue comes in living in Australia. So mangroves are prohibited to be collected in Australia. I believe there may have been some commercial collection of red mangroves in Queensland that made them available through the hobby, but not by any real large volume. And not only that, my other true interest, which is seagrass, which would be obviously in the same type of biotype exhibit, are also protected in Australia and certainly in New South Wales. So of course I could do something like a little species tank with some fiddler crabs, or I might even do the Cyanodorsalis, which is the neon blue eye from up in Northern Territory. But those little species tanks, I'm just worried I might get bored. If I can get somehow some sort of permit to do a once-off collection of seagrasses and maybe some mangroves for a display, educational maybe, I'd love to give it a crack. And who knows, maybe those Varanus semirexes are in the hobby now, and I might be able to have a crack at having some sort of predator prowling around those mud flats at low tide. I hope that answers your question, and for Diva Chapman, cheers. But don't forget, if you've got a question you would like personally answered, then do so down in the comments. To the right, please answer in video, and I'll be sure to give you a deep dive, a closer look at Reggie in this case, but a closer look at whatever it is that you would like to have a closer look at. Thank you, David Chapman and Copperhead Customs. This is my favourite sea cucumber to include in the aquariums. It's just a jet black local sea cucumber found in tide pools and rock pools, which makes it extremely hardy. And it's a fantastic sand sifter. I just don't want to get bitten by a moray eel. Oy. It always makes me nervous putting in moray eels into new homes. When they're settled, they're really happy, but when they're unsettled, they have a tendency to want to jump out. So I'm going to be on high alert for the next few days. Once he finds himself his lair, he's going to be happy as Larry. This is Albert, my white-eyed moray. Now, the white-eyed moray and the snowflake moray are both found in the Gold Coast Seaway, but there is a beautiful moray that also is very common up there, and that's the stout moray. In the Seaway, it's a very variable moray, but in the Seaway, it's got brilliant yellow colours. It's a bit more aggressive than these two, so I might have to do a fish only or a species only tank just for a stout moray. Look at that, all these tube worms and various critters growing in there. That's the kind of stuff that I love to put in my new tanks to kickstart and to help along biodiversity. Look at these guys. Fantastic. I love my moon wrasse. And a Sergeant Major. Unfortunately, the moon wrasse, with their delicate skin, they haven't got the scales on the outside of the body, they do scratch pretty easily. I've got to get this guy in. This is my soldier fish, crimson soldier fish. He's caught up on the actual netting, and he's got very rough scales, so let's just get him in. Come on, buddy. Big eyes. There we go. You don't see many soldier fish or squirrel fish in aquariums, and he's fantastic, doesn't bother anybody, comes out and eats pellets quite readily. I'm going to try and collect a few more to give him some, a bit of a crew. I've got a serious, I know this guy doesn't look like much, but I've got a serious soft spot for the Sergeant Majors, and this is just a common Sergeant Major. I've got a pair in this tank, looking very dark at the moment, spawning all the time. I actually really like them. Just you wait till he or she settles in. The colours under white light are amazing. Commonly 4 species of Sergeant that live in the Gold Coast Seaway. The Scissortail, the true Sergeant Major, the Whitley Sergeant, and the Bengal Sergeant, which is a bit bigger. That's either a Mr. or Mrs. Sergeant Major. 2 fish to go into this aquarium now. There's a tiny little baby raccoon butterfly fish, and there's also a Gregory, which is a type of damselfish. And then there's 3 fish which aren't coming in here. And I'm starting to think that some of you might be able to guess which ones. You might remember the guy that bit me on the belly. That's one of those guys, Coral Sea Gregory, and there's my tiny little baby butterfly fish. There he goes. I love butterfly fish, and I love them in pairs. So as this one's growing up, is accepted as a little guy, we're going to have a pair of raccoon butterfly fish. So all the fish except for those 3 are now moved across. I've got some inverts to move across, some crabs and some snails, which the easiest time to do that is to do it after lights out. I do need to move across that 1 crate full of cycled media to go down there in the bottom of my trickle wet dry filter, and that way I'm guaranteed to have the biological capacity to support the nitrification and the filtering of this aquarium with this great big load of fish in one go. I can only do that, and I must stress this. This is a new aquarium. I can only put all these fish in one go because I've taken the biological filtration media from that aquarium and putting it in this one. I thought I had 28 fish caught for this aquarium and 3 fish left behind. but there's actually 4 fish left behind. I forgot about my cleaner ass. I'll have to find him in the morning. Thanks much for watching, everybody. If I could ask a small favor, if this is the second video that you've watched of mine and you're not yet a subscriber, I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe to the Australian Aquarius YouTube channel. I'm being quite surprised, actually, quite pleasantly surprised with the amount of community that's starting to grow and with the growth of the channel. And I would really like to help to foster that growth. So if you could do me that favor, that'd be fantastic. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on the Australian Aquarist.